Welcome to the AmericanaMusic.com podcast with your host, Sarah Popejoy.
Today on AmericanaMusic.com, we're excited to have Grammy-nominated Rissi Palmer. She shared bills with Eagles, Chris Young, Taylor Swift, and Charley Crockett. In 2025, she received the Academy of Country Music Lift Every Voice Award, recognizing her ongoing efforts to expand equity and visibility within the genre. She's been listed by Spin Magazine as one of 10 essential albums by Black artists in 2024. She's performed at the White House, Lincoln Center, the Apollo Theater, and the Grand Ol Opry. Her album Perspectives released this past Friday, February 6th. We're excited to have her on our show today. Welcome, Rissi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You were born in Pittsburgh and raised in Missouri.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about growing up in Missouri, what that was like?
Well, first of all, I was telling my kids, it's funny that you say that. We were literally having this conversation the other day. I have a 14-year-old. We've been having snow days here. And so she was just like, did you guys have snow days when you were a kid? And I'm like, yes, dear, we did. But in the Midwest, you know, you get like 6 feet of snow and you still have to go to school the next day. So like you get the day of the snow, but you got to go back. No, Missouri was good for me for a lot of reasons. It was where I really got into performing. I started professionally singing when I was 16 in St. Louis because of a local television station that would hire kids, teenagers, to perform at Six Flags, on television, and at different events. It was a group called Team 11. It was kind of modeled after the Mickey Mouse Club. And so like in the summer, we would introduce television shows on the station, film PSAs about not using drugs and like that kind of thing. That was really where I kind of honed my chops. Same thing with church. Like the church that I was in, that I grew up in St. Louis, was where I first started singing my solos. A lot of what I do now started when I was in St. Louis. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to my upbringing there.
St. Louis is great. It's a ton of small little communities within the whole community that really makes it neat. It's like you're going to a different city and you're still in the same city.
Yeah, there were counties. So I've never lived anywhere like that. The only thing that I can personally compare it to, I guess, is like in Louisiana where they have parishes and stuff. And so St. Louis is kind of broken up like that. And so I grew up in like West County, which is like Chesterfield and Eureka and all these different little small cities that are all grouped into the county. Yes. It is very interesting. And you can go to North County and it's a completely different vibe. It's very interesting.
Who are some of your biggest influences musically growing up?
I was really fortunate that I grew up in a house where my parents weren't afraid to listen to everything. So I was exposed to everything. I really loved James Taylor. Growing up, I still do. Phoebe Snow, Chaka Khan, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Lionel Richie, Whitney Houston, Patsy Cline, and so many other people like that. I grew up in a house where we listened to country, pop, and R&B. And then on Sundays, exclusively gospel. My mother would get up before we go to church and put on, you know, Andre Crouch and Richard Smallwood and people like that. Cook breakfast, but we were listening to this gospel music up until we got to church and then sing a lot of this music in church. So I feel like my music is a mixture of all those things. Like I got into the Judds when I was able to start like choosing the music that I wanted to listen to. I really, really still love Winona and Trisha Yearwood, people like that.
I was the biggest Judd fan growing up.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It was so funny. It sounded so much like gospel music to me that, I mean, it was funny. I thought they were black for the longest time until I saw a picture of them and I was like, oh, okay. Because they just sounded so soulful. Like, I don't know very many people that can sing like Winona. Like, she's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got, I don't know what that thing is that she's got that only a few singers have, but it's like, oh my goodness.
No, she's got it. Like it. Yeah.
In 2007, with your single Country Girl, you became the first Black female country artist to chart on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart in 19 years. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
So at the time, I don't think I was even aware of that. I didn't know until after we had charted, and I think it was the radio team that figured that out. And so let us know and, let my publicist know and the label and everybody. But, looking back on it now, it's a really interesting superlative, right? Because it's like, oh, that's really cool. You made it onto the charts. And like, that's exciting, especially at the time I was an independent artist. This was my very first single. We had been working it for like a year. Every sense of the word, I was an underdog. For us to get the song on the chart was like a huge thing. Like it was a huge coup. So I was really excited about that. And then to hear that there hadn't been a Black woman in like 19 years to do it was, I don't know, it wasn't reassuring. I'll say that. Like it was, oh, that's cool. And then like a few minutes later, it's like, okay, well, why is that? It left me with more questions than it did good feelings. I'll say that.
Presently, you also host a podcast called Color Me Country Radio. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that platform?
Sure. So the show is called Color Me Country Radio with Rissi Palmer. It's on Apple Music. We just entered into our 6th season, which is incredible. We're over 100 episodes in and all that. And it started as a thing for me to do during COVID. 2020, it seems like a fever dream now, but like at the time, I had just put out a record and literally everything that I had scheduled was canceled due to COVID. And so I'm at home with a then 9-month-old baby, an 8, almost 9-year-old child with nothing to do. And I'm watching the world kind of just go through it in terms of like COVID and then the uprisings due to the death of George Floyd. All of a sudden, I'm seeing people talk about Black artists in country music or people of color in country music. And I'm just noting how incomplete the information is. And so I had suddenly all this time on my hands, personally knew about my experience, and I knew of so many other artists because it's such a small community. I knew most of them. And so I just started reaching out to people and asking them to just have conversations with me. What I was hoping to accomplish was just to have like this historical record of firsthand conversations, everybody talking about their experiences. And also I wanted people to be honest. And I find that it's a lot easier to be honest with someone who is considered to be a peer rather than like a journalist, because I can speak for myself personally. You want to present the best picture possible on social media. You want to present the best picture possible whenever you're speaking to a major publication. But when you're talking to a peer, when you're talking to someone who has been through the same exact things that you've been through, tend to be more honest and more candid. And so that's what the show started as. I also wanted to make sure that we included not just Black voices, but Asian voices, Hispanic voices, marginalized people just in general. And so, yeah, that's what the show was, and just give platform to this music that doesn't often get highlighted on country radio. A lot of these artists tend to be independent. And so again, hearkening back to what we just talked about with my first single, it's very rare that you get to hear independent artists on country radio or on streaming and that sort of thing. So I wanted people to have a place where they felt comfortable telling their stories and also to send their music, a place where you could be heard. I never imagined the response would be what it has been in the Country Music Hall of Fame. We've been in the Grammy Museum. Every major morning show has covered the show, and every major newspaper and all that. And so, it's a testament, I believe, to the fact that this was needed. I never would have imagined that this would, my little COVID project would turn into this. And like the first season we were on, Darius Rucker reached out to us and wanted to be on the show. And, I knew Darius because our singles came out at the same time in 2007, 2008, respectively. I knew him from, red carpets and different events and that sort of thing. But it was the first time he'd ever talked about race in terms of his country music career and things that he had faced and that sort of thing. And so he really was instrumental in that first season in getting us a lot of attention and that sort of thing. Cause like, oh, he's talking to this little show on Apple. Maren Morris has been on our show. Cam has been on the show. Mickey Guyton has been on the show repeatedly. So many of the people that are trying to affect change in country music have stopped by and had conversations with me. So, you know, I'm very proud of the show. It's changed my life. I'm just really very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, like all of us collectively together, just supporting each other, having these very honest and sometimes very hard conversations.
Yeah, I like the way you said about how, because of who you are and you've been through it, they're more likely to open up as opposed to like a reporter or something.
Right. I can remember very early on, like if you look at my early interviews, a lot of times you would just think that it was like sunshine and lollipops because I didn't want to talk about it all the time because I felt like I was always talking about being Black and always talking about what, you know, what I'm facing and that sort of thing, as opposed to being able to talk about the fact that, you know, I wrote every song on my album but two, my debut album, and that, you know, I was touring and I was playing the Opry and I was getting to do all these really cool things. And the thing that everyone wanted to talk about was me being Black. So I didn't want that to become the only thing that I talked about. And so I would gloss over those things in the hopes that we could get to the music eventually. I think now I realize that like my Blackness, my femininity, and the fact that I'm a woman in this business as well, they're linked. Like it's all linked. Like my music, the type of music that I make, the choices that I make musically and lyrically are all inextricably linked together. And that's not a problem. And that's not a bad thing. That's just who I am as an individual.
It's so interesting how the music just becomes secondary.
Yeah. I know a lot of women don't like to talk about, I've read interviews and heard artists say that like they don't necessarily want to talk about being women all the time either, because, you know, women historically don't have the easiest time either. Just white women don't have the easiest time in country music being heard and being played and that sort of thing. And they don't necessarily want to be just pigeonholed to just, oh, I'm a girl singer. But unfortunately, and fortunately, it's who we are. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of the story. I just wanted to give it dignity. And I think that's what we try really hard to do on the show. Like all of the conversations do not center around race, but we are free to talk about it.
It's a subject not talked about enough, really.
Right. And we shy away from it and we make it taboo. And it's just like, again, it's just who you are. Like, it's just a part of who you are. And so not talking about it is almost like ignoring like this really huge part of who you are. It's silly.
You talk about how words and songs can completely change meaning depending on who sings them. Can you expand on this idea a little bit? I really love that.
Sure. Well, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. That was a fabulous segue. It's, as I said before, I am a Black woman in the United States. I am the descendant of a myriad of different types of people. My experience is uniquely colored by those experiences and the people that I come from. I started kind of grappling with that idea after I listened to this interview with Audra McDonald, the Broadway actress, singer. She was in 2025, she starred in, I believe, the first all Black cast or leading cast of Gypsy. Gypsy is based on a true story. It begins during vaudeville. And so she talked about how they didn't change any of the dialogue. They didn't change any of the lyrics to any of the songs. Everything stayed exactly the same except for the color of the people that were playing the main characters, and how it completely changed the play. It completely changed a lot of the dynamics. It created new dynamics that didn't exist before because of the historical context that all these characters existed in. And I thought that was fascinating because it's true. For example, on my EP Perspectives, there's a song that was written by Chris Stapleton that was performed by the Steel Drivers, a song called Can You Run? This song was suggested to me by Alice Randall, who is mentor, a pioneer, a trailblazer herself as a Black woman, one of the few Black women that have written #1 songs in country music. She wrote X's and O's for Trisha Yearwood. She suggested the song to me, and I'd never heard it before, and she sent it over to me, and I listened to it. Again, Chris Stapleton wrote this song, and it's a song from the perspective of an enslaved man, an enslaved Black man during the Civil War, trying to get his love to leave the plantation, to run away. You know, he's explaining all the dangers that they're possibly going to face and all this kind of stuff, but like just how it's worth all the dangers, possibly death, are worth risking to be free. And I was like, what an interesting song for Chris Stapleton, this white man from Alabama, to write from that perspective. And I was just like, so he's inhabiting this character to sing this song. And I was just like, if I sing this song, it does change a little bit the dynamic, because I am the descendant of enslaved people. You know, I know of stories within my family of people that escaped or endured. One story in particular, my father's side, one of my grandmother had 11 kids with her enslaver. A lot of my European descent comes from that. I have a descendant my brother found that had a family member killed by the police in this small town that he was from in Sparta, Georgia, and he in turn opened fire on the police. This was a news article that we found. And so, you know, resistance is all up and through my bloodline. Again, this song to me is not just me telling a story, but it's also me giving voice to my own ancestors who risked death for dignity and for freedom. You sing songs from the perspective of a lover. You sing songs from the perspective of having a good time or whatever. And like, depending on where you're coming from your own background and your own experience, it completely changes the tone of what it is that you're saying. And so I thought that was kind of fascinating. And I thought it was an interesting way to explore my own life, my own experiences.
When you were saying that just then, because I think about that a lot with songwriters and their perspective. I know this is not even the same kind of thing, but it's similar. It makes me think of the difference between when John Prine sings I Am an Old Woman Named After My Mother.
Yes.
And then I also think about when Bonnie Raitt sang it when she was, I don't know, probably in her 20s or 30s singing that versus singing it now that she's older.
Oh my God, yes. You talk about Bonnie Raitt. One of my favorite songs is Nick of Time. I have loved Nick of Time since I was a kid. I think I was a teenager when that song came out. I just love the beat, the way that it felt. Oh my God, do I identify with this song so much now, being, you know, north of 40? You know, I definitely, I get it. I get it now. I get it so much differently. And like, same with, there's this really great song. Patty Griffin is one of my favorite singers. And there's this song called Long Ride Home. For those that are not familiar, it's a song about a widow coming home from her husband's funeral. But it's like this marriage, just based on the lyrics and the choice of lyrics. Oh my God, that's why she's such a skillful songwriter. You can tell this marriage has been dead for a long time. And she's kind of grappling with, all right, so what, now you're not here. And so like now I'm just kind of dealing with everything that comes from you not being here anymore. And God, I get that song. You know, I'm divorced. I'm not widowed, but I'm divorced. And I get that song so much differently than I did at the time when I first heard it. And so, yeah, your experiences color what a song means to you and the way the person delivers. I mean, I think Angel from Montgomery is a great illustration of that because John Prine is an exemplary storyteller, but it still means something completely different when Bonnie Raitt gets a hold of it. It really does.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your song, Old Black Southern Woman, the first line in it is, I want to be an old black Southern woman, the kind my mother never got to be. You lost your mother when you were 7 years old. Can you talk about the inspiration for the song and what you hope it conveys to others?
Sure. Well, first, I want to start with this. I say this every time I perform the song. So you don't have to be old, black, or Southern, or even a woman to get the meaning of the song. That's just like what it means to me. I wrote this song with Kashana Armstrong, who is Kashana is a national treasure. I don't say that lightly. Like, she's one of my favorite human beings, but she's also just this really beautiful songwriter. She focuses a lot on legacy. And this is the first thing we ever wrote together. I had the idea for the chorus, and then we just filled in the verses and all that, talking about our mothers and talking about our grandmothers. So the song has 3 different meanings to me. One is talking about my mom and kind of lamenting the fact that my mother only lived to be 38 years old. And that is so young. I'm 44, almost 45. I can't imagine my life ending at 38. It's so young. And, not getting to see my 2 daughters grow up. It's kind of a eulogy for my mother. It's also a vision board for myself. It's the kind of, when I'm talking about walking barefoot in my garden and having white hair and, watching my grandkids play and like that sort of thing. Like, I mean that. I want that so badly. It's also like an homage to all the women that helped raise me. All the things that I talk about in that song are composites of my great grandmother, my grandmother, my aunts, my stepmom, my mom. I call her my mom because she is. But it's a composite of all of these strong, beautiful, amazing, wise women that helped raise me. It's a testament to the blessing of getting old. We always talk about, oh, my back hurts, oh, my hair, oh, you get wrinkles and 30 pounds of new fat that wasn't there before and like all that kind of stuff. But you also get to watch the people you love evolve, hopefully. You get to see people grow up. You get to see the world change. You get to see yourself evolve and grow and change. And I think that's a blessing. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And that's what the song is about. It's not so much about being Black. It's not so much about being Southern. It's not so much about being a woman. It's more so just about the beauty and the blessing of getting to continue to live.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just really beautiful.
Thank you.
I love the idea for it and the hope it conveys to others.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I think we were laughing about this when it came out because I think some people got caught up in the title. And so they thought that that's all it was. Me talking about, oh, I'm old and Southern and Black. That's not really what the song is. So it's one of those things that you actually have to sit down and listen to. And once you get past the initial, like the first line, then it's like, oh, I know what this is about.
Well, and it adds even more power with the story you're telling it from. It's a great song.
Thank you. Thank you.
The last song on the album is a Loretta Lynn classic.
Yes.
Somebody Somewhere. It's the 4th song on the album, and you sang it on the Trailblazing Women of Country tour, which honored the legacies of Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, and Dolly Parton, 3 of my favorites. It was also produced by Dan Knobler. Can you talk about this song?
Yeah, so I got to do this tour last year. It was actually around this time last year. All-woman band, which was really cool. It was my first time ever doing that. I loved it. It was great. And myself and another really brilliant Americana artist, Christina Train, we were the lead singers. I've always loved Patsy and I've always loved Dolly. I'll be perfectly honest, and like, this is me being very brave because I know how much people love Loretta. I had never really dug in super deep into Loretta's catalog. I knew Coal Miner's Daughter, You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man, and The Pill and all that stuff. But like, I just hadn't gone like super deep into her catalog. This was one of my songs. So when I was studying to do the show, I made a playlist of everything that I was responsible for singing. And like, the Patsy stuff was easy because I knew all that. I knew most of the Dolly stuff too. They gave me like the hardest Dolly stuff ever. Like, I got freaking Jolene and I Will Always Love You. Why do I have I Will Always Love You? But anyway.
The one Whitney Houston sang.
Yeah, right.
No pressure.
Right. There's no other song I could have done. But anyway, I got Coal Miner's Daughter and Don't Come Home a Drinking and this. And so I had to really study Loretta because, again, it's hard to sing things that are like super iconic. It's like, oh, Coal Miner's Daughter, great. And that sort of thing. Because I was like, I don't want nobody to be mad at me. And so I fell in love with Somebody Somewhere. I fell in love with her, first of all, because she's such a great songwriter. And like, the thing that was cool about Loretta was that she wrote wrote in such a way that you got the feistiness, and you definitely got a sense of her personality from her songwriting. Like, these are not songs that everyone could sing because you had to be the embodiment of the song. Again, this is another thing about perspective. Not a lot of singers have signature, and she had signature sound and songwriting. So I love this song because like you can hear the cry in her voice. And like, how many times have we all sat and listened to the radio and just completely gotten lost in a song that took us to sometimes some of the most painful moments of our lives? That was the hook for me for that song. Cause I've been there, like, you know, just driving and listening to and just sobbing while you're driving all of a sudden in traffic. That was my entryway into that song. And so I was just like, this song could be really cool. I wonder what it would sound like if we gave it like a Norah Jones-ish-esque treatment, like she did to Cold Cold Heart. And that's what we did. And so my band and I went into this. This was one of the last things. I was recording something else and we did this song and it was fun.
What do you think makes a great song?
That's a great question. I think a great song is tactile, meaning I can see it, I can smell it, I can taste it, and I can touch it. If your song has all of those things, can create like movies in your mind, then I think that's a great song. I think that's what made John Prine a great songwriter, is that you can, what's the word? You can experience his songs tactily. Patty Griffin is that kind of songwriter.
Mary Chapin?
Yes. Nancy Griffin. Yeah, I think that's the mark of a great songwriter. Dolly Parton is really like that. Like Coat of Many Colors is one of the most tactful. I think it did become a movie, right? Wasn't Coat of Many Colors a movie? Yeah. Jolene is like that. Like, I'm there. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can see her. And that to me is the mark of a great songwriter, of a great song, is that I can experience it tactily. And so when I'm writing, I try to think like that. I don't always achieve that, but like that's what is always in my mind, is like, can the person experience this? My favorite books are that way. Like Toni Morrison is that kind of writer. She writes tactily. It's almost disappointing to see movies made of the books because they almost never look or feel like what it is in your mind. So that to me is the mark of a great song, is the experience of it.
Rissi, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Same. Thank you for having me.
And I encourage everybody to check out her EP that came out this past Friday, February 6th, called Perspectives by Rissi Palmer. Thank you so much for listening to AmericanaMusic.com podcast. Be sure to go to AmericanaMusic.com and find playlists of the Americana artists we've interviewed here. Also, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform.